Almost 2 decades before they published Anthem, EA made good video games. One of those video games was the arcade snowboarding game SSX Tricky. SSX Tricky was developed by EA Canada and published by EA Sports Big, a label of EA introduced for arcade-esque sports games. It's the second game in the SSX series, with the first one being simply titled SSX. The game released in 2001 for Xbox, PlayStation 2, and GameCube, with a Game Boy Advance version releasing a year later. After the success of the first game, EA took many of the courses from SSX1 and reworked them for Tricky, and also added 6 new racers, 7 if you played the PAL European version. EA even brought in actress Lucy Liu to voice Elise Riggs, giving the game a real sense of reputation. Upon release, SSX Tricky received significant praise both from sports fans and regular gaming fans alike. Reviewers praised its introduction of tricky moves and revamped tracks. GameSpot's review remarked about the new cinematics that play after the race depending on the player's aggression levels. More on that later though. GameSpot also praised the voice acting in Tricky, a facet of the game only improved through the introduction of celebrities like the aforementioned Lucy Liu, Macy Gray, and David Arquette. Mixmaster Mike of the Beastie Boys also received praise for the soundtrack. In 2001, GameSpot called SSX Tricky the best skateboarding game ever made. SSX Tricky has an intimate relationship with fun. Some games from that era, like Shenmue and Sonic Adventure, have you walking around open worlds looking for the fun part. Meanwhile, in SSX Tricky, the whole game is the fun part. In Sonic Adventure, as opposed to the 2D entries, there's an open world that the player has to navigate in order to move on to the next level. Be it finding a power-up or a hidden key, which is often hidden pretty cryptically, it just buffers for time between levels, and elongates an experience that shouldn't be that lengthy. Meanwhile in SSX Tricky, there's no minigames, no time wasted, just fun. All you do is shred powder, do whatever this is, and play dress up. The aesthetics of SSX Tricky is one of the game's strongest suits. In 2001, the graphics were top-notch thanks to its textures and the snow's particle effects. Even today, the game is a style that holds up, due in part to its visual clarity. The game doesn't look muddy or like goop, everything sticks out how it should. Every track also has its own color palette and feel. Garibaldi has this crisp, sweeping white and blue, then it transitions into Snow Dream Japan, which is a night course with a hint of orange on the snow. Mesa Blanca has minecart tracks everywhere. Later in the game, you get the courses like Mercury City, a dark, close-quarters urban map, and Tokyo Megaplex, which looks like the future, and like this. The characters, which come from all over the world, are like a time capsule into 2001. You have a diverse group of people all coming together to worship the powder they've been gifted to shred. Thanks to the writer profiles, you have an in-depth look at the characters, from celebrity crushes, what they like to do outside of snowboarding, and their friends and foes on the track. First, you have Mac, who dresses like any lackadaisical teenager and listens to Blink-182 and probably Linkin Park. Basically, he's the man 5-year-old me dreamed of being. You have Eddie, the funky Afro-rocking guy who likes kung fu movies and does the worm on his board. Then you have Elise, who loves the assertive woman, rock music, and whose dream date is Mark McGrath. Too bad he's... Who's that sugar gap? Beat your ass! Kaori, who has this anime board. Luther, who looks like that. Sia, who loves R&B and looks straight up funky. Middle-earth, Shadow of Mordor, and its sequel, Shadow of War, both have a unique system known as the Nemesis system, where enemies grow stronger and form intertwined histories through battles with your character. This system, of course, was done first by SSX Tricky, where I'm sure almost all gaming trends can be traced back to. It functions on a similar level, where if you knock down enough competitors during a race, they'll try to exact revenge on you tenfold. Also, they never forget. After each race, your character gets into small talk with the other racers, which they usually say not so nice things to you. The developers also did a good job of not letting the game's arcadey nature betray its more realistic aspects. Sure, if I mess up a trick while getting some massive air, the game isn't going to go, oh, look like that hurt, he broke his L1 through 5 vertebrae, and he's never going to fully recover. Meanwhile, you're going to jail for it. However, I mean the fluidity and seemingly natural movements of even the most ridiculous tricks make you think, hey, maybe that was real. Maybe I could do that. Even today, the animation in this game's impressive. The gameplay in SSX Tricky takes the gameplay from the original SSX a year before and builds off that foundation to produce an even stronger product. If the gameplay in SSX is Chicken Little, then the gameplay in SSX Tricky is Chicken Little at the end of Chicken Little. The trick system in the game is fairly simple, with the D-pad being used for flips and spins, while B, Z, and the triggers are used for grabs. However, its simplicity makes it easy for anyone to pick it up and for more experienced players to go absolutely hog wild. You can see progression from doing simple flips, spins, and grabs to combos that make even the game say, "What the f?" You do tricks to get boost and build up your tricky meter, which once full allows you to perform the tricky moves for which the game is named. The meter also functions as your boost meter, which lets you go faster while sacrificing progress towards tricky moves. Fail a trick and you lose meter. Too scared to do tricks? You lose meter. If you can do 6 of them, then the tricky meter remains full no matter what, no matter how many times you fail, and you have unlimited boost. This is called the super boost.